Hello and welcome to The Found Cause, where we found our cause in serving the Lord Jesus Christ. I'm Michael Bay behind the machine, and to my right, your left is...
Sebastian, the archivist.
How's it going, Sebastian? It's been 2 weeks. We took a little week off.
Yes. I'm doing quite all right. Are you healed from the bubonic plague that you had?
Yeah, this year, let it be known that the winter of 2024 to 2025 was very rough for a lot of people, like coworkers and others that are not even in my same part of the U.S. I've been getting stomach bugs and vicious colds, so it's been kind of bad out there for us with people with children, I think, out there touching every handle, my house included. We got a stomach bug, so we took off last week, so thank you. We got beautiful comments, though, on our way out. We had posted one of our... If you know The Found Cause, you know that we get a lot of views on response videos, and so videos that are not response videos, which is the ones we've posted for the past 2 episodes, which has been, doing it for fun. They're not, like, hard-hitting 1,000-view videos. And so one of the latest comments in our week off was, "This is boring. I almost fell asleep," or something from some agnostic. So only encouragement for our fans, which is all I ask for. Today, we are continuing the streak of esoteric topics that won't win over agnostics, but may be interesting for, you viewer, is today we're talking about end times, baby. Part of it is because I was almost asleep. I should have been asleep in the dead of night. And my dear brother that you see before you, Sebastian, sends me a text and says, "I don't normally ask you to actually watch a video all the way through. I know you ignore a lot of videos." I read the subtext. Yes, I do. But you should read this one or watch this one all the way through. So I set it to 2 times speed and I watch it right there. It's interesting. It's a presentation from 2 gentlemen from a small channel, bigger than ours, called
New Kingdom Media, Anglican.
Sebastian's been on his Episcopal Anglican era, so he's listening to the Anglicans. And it was like a 3-parter, and this was the 3rd part, hour and a half long discussion of the end times. They were historic pre-millennials by confession, and so am I. So I'm like, okay, that's cool. And that's their view of the end times. If you are not familiar with the end times, by the way, it's probably not your episode. I'm just going to warn you. We have done episodes on the end times and the different positions of the end times and explained a lot of the terms we're going to use. So if you aren't familiar with Christian end times, the book of Revelation, the book of Daniel, whatever else, I encourage you to probably pick a different video. And otherwise, we're just not going to sit here and explain ourselves too much. But we are both, I think we'd call ourselves, historic pre-millennialists, meaning we believe in the historic position of premillennialism, because there's a modern position that adds things that we don't adhere to, but that Christ will return before the 1,000-year millennial reign that is described in Revelation. So in Revelation, if you know your Revelation text, the very end of Revelation, Christ comes and establishes a kingdom that lasts 1,000 years. And there are 3 positions. One of them says that the 1,000 years will come before Christ returns, meaning, and that's called post-millennialism, because the return of Christ is post the millennium, it's after the millennium. There are those who say there is no millennium, that the millennium is a figurative term, it's not a real 1,000 years, and that at the end of this time period, however long it is, longer than a millennium, Christ will return. That's called amillennialism. That we don't care about the millennium. It's not important that it's 1,000 years long. And then premillennialists, pre-millennium, believe that Christ comes, his return is before the millennium, and that it is a literal millennium, 1,000 years. So those are typically the 3 kinds of end times theorist you can be in traditional Christianity. Is that Jesus is coming back soon. He's not back yet. And so what do you do about this? He establishes a 1,000-year reign. You either ignore it, you say it will happen before he comes or after he comes. And we are ones that would say he comes. It's after he comes. Yes.
And all this goes to say that these wonderful gentlemen in the channel that I respect, I enjoy the sermons from New Kingdom Media, so my love goes to them as brothers in Christ. And they're in New Zealand, so not Australia, New Zealand, so love across the ocean. Hugs and kisses. They had very elaborate interpretations of the events that unfold in the book of Revelation. That's why I asked, okay, Michael, I'm not often into conspiracies, so I need another pair of eyes and ears to discern, if we're going off to La La Land, like getting derailed from what the text is actually saying. So, and in many cases, they bring up some interesting points. We'll discuss some new theory. I mean, for me, brand new theories that I was like, I've never consider Revelation to be interpreted this way. We'll discuss that. And then also sometimes in which probably shouldn't be guessing about the identity of first the Antichrist. Like, it might be hard to guess now. We'll get into why that's difficult and maybe we shouldn't be guessing. And the double fulfillment, one fulfillment? We'll also get into perspectives on that.
Yeah. So this is like a grab bag episode on if you already have a decided position on the end times, you should listen and hear us out. And we're not going to be going through like text by text of what does this mean? What does that mean? It's not this episode. It's also not an intro level course of what everybody's beliefs are. This is, as historic premillennials, what should our philosophy on the end times be, and a little bit of rah go premillennialism, because as you hear, it's something that's interesting to us. I don't want to presume that I am right just because of traditions that I've grown up with. And so for background, I, like a lot of Americans, grew up in a very typical, the rapture is coming and the end times is super close and don't get barcodes in your forehead kind of thing. And when I came to Reformed theology, I also re-examined a lot of things. Like what else am I holding traditionally that I shouldn't, that's not biblical? And the rapture is one of those things. If you're listening, know that I'm going to be flippant about this, but I don't mean to be, and there's episodes worth of discussing this, but I do not hold to rapture. I don't think it is in the Bible at all. And so when push comes to shove, can we justify the pre-tribulational rapture or mid-trib rapture? No, I don't think so. Not to say that God can't do it. I mean, God is all powerful, so he can do whatever he wants, but I don't think that's described in Scripture. I also don't think that we should take any sort of crazy position that it's coming up super soon, only because, and maybe something we should discuss, every church father that's ever talked on the topic seems to have some position on it that has since been disproved. And if history should last another 1,000 years, we will look crazy, right? We'll give a bad credit to the church's name and to this position's name when we say that it was Donald Trump and the end times is coming in the next 3 years, when it totally does not. And then the world lasts for another 1,000 years. And so I am pretty anti making bold predictions like that, knowing full well that Christians for the last 2,000 years have been making bold predictions, even when they don't think they're so bold. Like, you've got some quotes, and maybe we'll quote them later, from church fathers who are like, it'll be 300 years from now, which, if I said it was going to be 300 years from now, we'd all be like, yeah, okay. I mean, of course it's going to happen in the next 300 years. Like, you're giving yourself way too much time, but clearly it did not happen in 300 years from this ancient church father. So I don't think we should really be making things like that at all, because they're always disproven. Martin Luther had them, Augustine had them, John Calvin had positions, R.C. Sproul had positions. So I just don't think we should really be in the business of that, personally. Where am I going with this? Oh, the New Kingdom Media guys were making, like Sebastian said, some bold predictions of Donald Trump as the Antichrist. And I'm like, well, first of all, it sounds very like Democrat. These guys were not Democrats, so it doesn't do them justice to just say that headline, because they had better reasoning than you might think. But my humble opinion, definitely not Donald Trump for a variety of reasons, just mostly because he doesn't fulfill the Book of Revelation's requirements. But I want to defend premillennialism a little bit. Why are you a premillennialist, Sebastian? I should ask first before I get into my stump. Do you have any decided reason?
Yeah. I am a very simple person, and I say this honestly, from a plain reading of the text, I see all these things as futuristic. There are parts of the Book of Revelation that could reasonably be agreed on that this happened, like, for example, the woman representing Israel, and then Jesus coming from that woman with the 12 stars. Not the Virgin Mary, as some would say. Some say it's the Virgin Mary. It's not the Virgin Mary. It's Israel, the 12th tribe of Israel. And then the dragon trying to drown the woman and the child. Yes. The flees to the desert. Okay, you could say it's Herod possessed by Satan. Okay. I think many would agree on that. But then many of the other events, in my humble opinion, I see them as coming in the future, and some of those things, I'm of the opinion, couldn't have been accomplished. Okay, yes, God can do whatever he wants. God tends to also use normal means to achieve his goals, like Cyrus the Great. I don't think he had magical powers to trample his enemies and conquer them. Yes, God made it easy for him to conquer his enemies, but he still grabbed a sword and a bow and conquered the enemies through quote-unquote natural means. Likewise, I think God uses a lot of natural means to accomplish his ends. So I'm gonna talk about it later too. I don't think a lot of those natural means of the Antichrist rising to power, connected globalism, pretty much, couldn't have been achieved back then.
Fair enough.
Just a sample. We can talk more, but that's just a sample.
And in case you need a reminder, Amillennialists and post-millennialists, so the positions we don't hold, both of them are very, very similar, because both of them would say that the vast majority of the book of Revelation is already fulfilled. So the book of Revelation is only 26 chapters, something I should know because I have it open, but I don't have this open the last chapter. It's on 20-something chapters. There's not many chapters in it. Or there's that many. And they would say up to maybe 22 chapters, whatever. Up to like chapter 20 is fulfilled. So all the way up to the millennium portion of the Revelation, which is like the very, very end of the book, is already fulfilled. And that we're only waiting on like the very, very end, the return of Christ, and that's it. So everything else in the book of Revelation is referring to, drumroll please, the destruction of the temple, the second temple, in 70 AD, which happened, and we affirmed that. And I think a lot of the impetus, a lot of the, oh my gosh, the stars are shining in my eyes, what a wonderful theory, get lessened a little bit when I say I also believe that there were prophecies about the destruction of the temple in 70 AD that were fulfilled, but namely from Jesus. And I feel like the vast impetus, the biggest punch of pre-millennial or post-millennialists and amillennialists is pointing to Jesus's prophecies, where Jesus says it's coming shortly, like this generation will see these things, and saying this is clearly pointing to 70 AD. And then all the people that are from America, and they've used these passages to say that the end times are coming soon, and what they mean by that is that there'll be some one world government that takes over, are shocked and dismayed and abandon premillennialism for amillennialism, because Jesus is clearly talking about 70 AD. And I would agree with that Jesus in Matthew chapter 24 on the Mount Olivet Discourse, and its synoptic gospel, same parallels, where he's in the Olivet Discourse when he's talking about the temple being destroyed, and you hear of wars and rumors of wars, but see that you're not alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. Nations will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. There'll be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these things are the beginning of birth pains. All of that, I would agree, is discussing 70 AD. And I think you take the breath leaves amillennialism and postmillennialism when you then say the coming destruction predicted by Jesus is entirely separate, almost totally separate from Revelation, from the book of John. I do not believe, and I don't think there's any reason to believe, that the book of Revelation and the Mount Olivet Discourse are discussing the same events. And so I can totally affirm that Jesus is not a false prophet, that when he said that his return in this way, this coming judgment, these end times were coming soon, that it was about 70 AD, and that he was not a liar, that he was not a false prophet. These things did happen, and this was fulfilled. But also say that Revelation isn't about that. Like, Revelation isn't about the destruction of Jerusalem. Jesus already talked at length about the signs to know about the coming destruction of Jerusalem. The book of Revelation would be, first of all, incredibly confusing and totally superfluous, because Jesus already says in Luke's version of the Mount Olivet Discourse, when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, let the reader understand, all those in Judea are to flee to the mountains. Jesus has already given the instructions needed to know and see the sign of the times, and to flee and to protect the people in Jerusalem, and to bring judgment and show that the time of the Jews was over. Like, all of that was already discussed at length by Jesus a lot. So Revelation is totally unnecessary in that regard. I do think the only caveat is that there are like some things in Jesus's Mount Olivet Discourse that are referring to his second coming. Like he says, for example, at the totally end of the Mount Olivet Discourse, he says, but about that day or hour no one knows, nor even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. For in those days before the flood, people were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, up to the day Noah entered the ark. And they knew nothing about what would happen until the flood came and took them all away. This is how it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. 2 men will be in the field, one will be taken, the other left. By the way, that's not rapture, that's definitely they're dying in judgment. 2 women will be grinding a handmill, one will be taken, one will be left. Therefore keep watch, because you do not know on what day your Lord will come. But understand this, if the owner of the house had known at what time the night the thief was coming, he would have kept watch and would not have let his house be broken into. So you must also be ready, because the Son of Man will come at an hour that you do not expect him. So all that to say, that it's like about his second coming, right? So some of it is speaking about what I believe Revelation is speaking about, and Revelation is about his second coming. But a lot of the classic signs, like the moon will not give its light, and the sun will be darkened, and the abomination of desolation surrounding Jerusalem, a lot of that is just 70 AD, and you can believe that and still be totally premillennial, because Revelation is separate from the predictions of Jesus there. So that's one reason I'm a premillennialist, is that I see these and it's totally compatible with premillennialism, so I don't get the wind taken out of me there. And then two, same to Sebastian's point, I think premillennialism, ironically, because there's a lot of very not chill premillennialists, I think premillennialism is the chillest of all the positions you could have, because I, as a premillennialist, and you'll hear this more because I'll say it more, I have no idea what Revelation means. I don't presume to know what Revelation means. All I can say is that when I hear people describe their particular interpretation of Revelation and how it fits perfectly into 70 AD or 1972 or 1917 or whatever, can pick your weird conspiracy theories about how history has played out in Revelation, I do not see it working. There's always holes. There's always things that they're not justifying. For example, the beast fits no order of things. Every post-millennialist and amillennialist will say that the beast in Revelation 13 is described in, freaky Revelation language. They would say it's obviously the Roman Empire. Obviously, the beast is Nero. Nero's name calculates to 666. This is so obvious. That's like their favorite thing to say, that it has already been fulfilled pre-70 AD. But if you read it, and you know a little bit about Roman history, it doesn't match Roman history. It says that there's 10 horns and 7 heads and 10 crowns on the horns, and each one is a blasphemous name. The crowns represent kings that have been given authority, and the heads, I guess, are rulers. And they would say, well, if you count Julius Caesar up to Nero, that's 7 emperors, which last time I checked, Julius Caesar wasn't an emperor. That's kind of the whole shindig. That's why they murdered him. So I don't know why he would count. And if you do count him, why don't you count the previous dictator that was just like Julius Caesar, called Sulla, who Julius Caesar said inspired him to become dictator? Like, he's a very famous dictator if you were around in Roman times. The heads certainly don't match. The crowns don't match. And what's frustrating about this to me is that not just for the beast, it's for like all the weird, freaky stuff. There's some really lame way of explaining it, frankly, in my opinion, like the locusts that come out of the abyss. If you ever read Revelation, this is kind of one of the freakier plagues. Is locusts spew out of the abyss, and they are freaky looking locusts. I'm sure there's some spiritual significance to their look, so I'm not saying they have to look physically like they're described, but there's some significance to the way they look because it's odd. And they are given power and permission to sting unbelievers, only unbelievers, and not in a way that kills them, but in a way that hurts them, and they're all bemoaning being stung. And you're like, okay, as a premillennialist here, I'm not claiming to know what that means. I don't know what that means. They could be real physical locusts that look this weird way. Sebastian was suggesting today at dinner.
There are demons from like Tartarus that have been chained up in Second Peter. Yeah.
So maybe it's like invisible demons physically hurting people. Maybe it's just spiritual hurting, and that unbelievers are wounded by demonic lies or something like that. I don't know. Like, I guess they could all be true.
Yes. So now you're seeing the challenge that our amillennialist friends and post-mill friends have to face. Okay, so if all of that has happened, how did this happen in Roman times?
And that's the frustrating part to me, is with the beast, with the locusts, with any of these strange, frankly, they're very strange visions. Amillennialists and post-millennialists, by definition, have to say, I know what that means. I know exactly what that means because I have 20/20 hindsight, just like we have 20/20 hindsight for a lot of the prophecies of Jesus, which are also weird and esoteric, but we know exactly what they mean because we see them fulfilled in Christ. There's no confusion, no debate. We all know that when Isaiah describes they didn't break my bones, and he describes that I'll be crushed and the Messiah will be crushed and die, but he will see his offspring. that it's referring to Jesus, who died and rose again. So he sees his offspring and how his bones weren't broken on the cross. Like, those things were weird before Christ, but now we know them exactly what they mean in hindsight. If post-millennialists and amillennialists are correct, we should know exactly what these prophecies mean in Revelation. Like, they're really, I mean, there's always going to be some crazy person who doesn't agree, but everybody should basically agree that these things were fulfilled in 70 AD, and they aren't. Even among post-millennialists and amillennialists, they don't agree. They say they're fulfilled, but they don't know how. So I have heard several definitions of the beast fulfillment and why the 10 crowns are already fulfilled from people who agree that it's already been fulfilled. If it has actually already been fulfilled, and we're all Christians and have some level of discernment, you think at least those who believe that it's already been fulfilled will be able to agree how it was fulfilled? No, there's not agreement. Same goes for the locusts. For several different explanations for what those were. Some people would say they were the Roman legions carried whips, and they'd whip people and force them into forced labor as they invaded Israel. What a dumb explanation for what those things are. Those things are crazy sounding, and why not just say whips? Like, anyways, that's a crazy one. But that's what I've heard. I've read treatises on this from post-millennialists. I digress. In this way, post-millennialists and amillennialists, although they like to act chill, I would say most scholarly Christians are amillennialists. They like to act chill. They're like, I am not crazy. I'm not obsessed with where Revelation is going to be fulfilled in the news headlines of today, and therefore I am chill. I am at peace with when the Lord will return. I've already made my peace with Revelation. Those people have actually made a huge assertion claim, a very unchill assertion claim, in my opinion, that Revelation has already been fulfilled. And they know exactly what Revelation 13 means about the beast. They know exactly what Revelation 11 means about the locust. I don't. That's pretty unchill, I think, of you to say that you know exactly what these things mean and that it's obvious. It's not obvious. The book of Revelation is not obvious. A lot of prophecy is actually obvious, even when it's weird and obtuse. Like Daniel prophecies are weird. They look exactly like Revelation's prophecies with weird images and horns coming out of beasts. And Daniel's prophecies are another one that we all have pretty much mass agreement on exactly what they meant in hindsight, because they refer to the Persian invasion, the Greek invasion, the Roman invasion after them. Like, because we're in hindsight, we see exactly how those weird images were fulfilled. Unlike Revelation, where we don't. Not even just premillennialists versus the rest. It's amillennialists don't agree with each other. Postmillennialists don't agree with each other. And all throughout history, Sebastian's got some texts, but amillennialists, postmillennialists, and premillennialists have existed throughout history since the church's inception. And they've had different views than what modern postmillennialists and amillennialists and premillennialists have on the end times. And so it's just, there is no consensus on it, unlike many of the other things in prophecy.
Yeah, a couple of things on that. Even on something that I would say makes a case for premillennialism. 2 Thessalonians 2, where it says that the man of sin needs to be revealed, the lawless one will be revealed in accordance with the work of Satan. And there's going to be, I would interpret it like he will take his seat in the temple of God, proclaim himself to be God. Okay. If you go to this wonderful app called Catena, church father commentary uploaded to whatever verses of the Bible they are that you can find commentary on, I can find like 10 different opinions on just this matter on the man of lawlessness from like Ambrosiaster, Augustine, John Chrysostom, and Oikomenicus, issue that of Merv, Church of the East throwback. And what's his face? The guy I don't like. Origen. Who cares what he thinks? But he's there too. So
he has a different opinion, yeah.
Yes. So past 2,000 years, people have been guessing and trying to say, this means that means this. And you can find all opinions under the sun when it comes to the end times. Very entertaining. I got this book a while back from Andrew of Caesarea in Turkey, Anatolia. Interesting read. And one of the first official, concise whole, because we have treatises, but they're fragmentary. This is a whole treatise on the book of Revelation. Kudos for being one of the first to officially write commentary. The other one is Hippolytus of Rome, a little bit early, but I think it's not as detailed. This guy has some wild, I'm pretty sure even modern Orthodox, the Orthodox think he's a saint, and definitely Protestants and Catholics would think he's a little bit unhinged in his opinions. like the four horsemen of the apocalypse, he thinks these people are Christians. I had never ever heard anyone say that. Maybe, I mean, if you're Orthodox, comment if you agree with Andreas of Caesarea's opinion that the white horseman is the apostles going forth with a bow and bending it and shooting the gospel to the heathen and converting people. The red horse are the martyrs, the blood that either they're overfilled with zeal to go out and preach, or they're like covered in blood and dying for Christ. You get the point. I never heard of that. And then the other one, the best thing is on the name of the Antichrist. You've heard it. Amillennialists say it's Nero.
Obviously Nero.
Caesar Nero. Okay.
One of the number variants is 616 instead of 666, and that's to make it further fit Nero.
Okay. Yeah. Let me know if you find this guy lived in the when was this? 300s? Yeah, I would say give or take 300s or 400s. Pretty close to Nero. Closer to Nero than us, if you ask me. I read his commentary on here's wisdom. Let him who has a mind reckon the number of the beast, for it is the number of a human, and his number is 666. Okay. His commentary. The exact sense of the numerical cipher, as well as the rest of the things written regarding this time and experience, were revealed to those who live soberly. For as some of the teachers say, if it were necessary to know clearly such a name, the one who had beheld it would have revealed it. But divine grace was not well pleased to set down the name of the destroyer in the divine book. As in exercises in logic, many names are to be confounded in this number, according to the blessed Hippolytus and others, both proper nouns and common nouns. First, proper nouns, such as lampetis, titan, through the diphthong tenor, forming, which means to extend or like to reach, I think in Greek, forming the future of the verb, according to Hippolytus, and likewise Latinos, just as Benedict is interpreted as the one who is blessed, or blessed, perhaps in imitation of the truly blessed one, Christ or God. The common nouns, wicked guide, real harm, slanderer of old, unjust lamb, these he will be called by those opposing his deception, rendering the appropriate opinion in shame. Did you hear the name Nero mentioned here?
Nope.
No, me neither. So people have had, and he was Amillennial, for the record, he was, in my humble interpretation of this text, an Amillennialist. So he would have been of the opinion that the Antichrist will come from the Roman Empire, Byzantine Empire, quote unquote Byzantine, and that's why the Byzantines were all like down and sad that the Turks are coming because the end is nigh, and then the Antichrist is going to show up any day. And okay, so everyone thinks that the Antichrist is going to come when they're alive, conveniently so, because poop is hitting the fan wherever you live in the world at some point in time. And I don't know, last time I've checked, I've never heard anyone called Lampetis or Titan or Latinos. Not Hispanics, but Latins.
Latins,
Romans, like the Romans. So the Antichrist will be a Roman, but he has to refer back to Nero. These are two, in my opinion, one of the most entertaining ones in this book. Read the whole book for yourself. The Andrew of Caesarea commentary on the Apocalypse. It's a good read because it will give you perspective of someone that lived over 1,000 years before us, and you can clearly tell that they had their own wild takes on Revelation.
And I can only guess what our takes will look like to them. And that's why, like I said, the reason I am pre-millennial is not because of Left Behind or any of the cultural artifacts of America. I read the text and go, I hear the words, like I hear the words, the dragon stood at the shore of the sea, and I saw a beast coming out of the sea, and it had 10 horns and 7 heads. And I totally understand that this is probably not a physical description of the beast. More than probably, it is not a physical description of the beast, because it goes on to like explicitly say that the 10 horns or 10 crowns represent 10 kings. Mm-hmm. So like, got it. Okay, there's a lot of symbolism here. So I'm perfectly willing to spiritualize and symbolize, and I am absolutely willing to. I went into like Revelation study when I became Reformed to accept post-millennialism or amillennialism, like to get on the cool train instead of being on the lame-o old fundy train. And it did not, the positions weren't consistent. They didn't walk me through Revelation all the way. They ignore pieces of the text. honestly, just like a lot of premillennial positions do, a lot of premillennial positions that are trying to show you why it's now, right? Why the end times is happening now, will do the exact same butchering of Revelation. They will skip things, they'll spiritualize things that I don't think warrant spiritualization. They don't read it well. They don't read it like the rest of prophecy they would. So I don't appreciate this position. So I take the premillennial position because evidently this prophecy has not been unsealed yet. Like we're not on the other side of this prophecy because we can't unifiedly point to it and say it was clearly fulfilled. And so I believe that Jesus is not a false prophet. I believe that 70 AD was a significant fulfillment of Jesus's prophecy. And I believe that Revelation has not been fulfilled yet, except maybe, like, again, there's clear portions of it that we do all agree on, and we do all agree on the fact that Jesus came, and the Revelation chapter 12 is speaking about Jesus coming. Got it. You know, we're all there. And the first couple chapters, of course, are about churches. Got it. We're all there. But as far as all the tribulations, and there's 7 thunders that are sealed that are sealed, right? Like the only other time we have prophecies that are sealed in the Bible are the sealing of Daniel's prophecies, which are unsealed to us today. Like they were sealed for some time before the coming of Cyrus the Great and the decree to rebuild the temple in Jerusalem. They're unsealed because it already happened, right? Like that's what fulfilled prophecy looks like, is the no more seals. It's done. It's for the benefit of everybody post. And Revelation just is not like that. Still sealed, still mysterious. So all I can conclude is that it is yet to happen, which means that, at least it means that there's a lot of things left to do before the millennium starts. So I guess I could be post or amillennialist in that I still don't know. It's not conclusive when the millennium will start. But I will say the only reason, I think it's a bad reading of Revelation 20 about the millennium to say that it is either already started or that will happen after Christ returns. The only reason people say that is because of the reading of the prior 19 chapters. And so I would say a plain reading of chapter 20 is that Jesus returns and the millennium starts. So that's why I'm premillennial. But on everything else, I'd like to be as chill as possible in Revelation and say, yeah, I don't know. I will gladly listen to your strange theories. I'll gladly listen to the New Kingdom podcast. I'll gladly listen to many post-millennialist or amillennialist arguments for why it's already been fulfilled. But I have yet to meet one that fulfills even 3 of the weird things about Revelation, let alone the 20 that it's got in there. So if I could find a theory that like fulfilled well 3 of them, I'd be giving you a thumbs up. But even like the best treatises I've read a couple and listened to a couple treatises on amillennialism and post-millennialism specifically. They, first of all, are not consistent with each other. So just putting it out there that if it's so obvious that it's already happened, you'd think they'd all agree with each other. But 2, they don't even fulfill 3, right? They'll like say, I can see Nero is Neron Caesar made into Jewish letters. Is their Jewish letter number system does equal 666. Okay, great. And also 616 if you spell it differently. Great. But it does not fit the 10 horns, 7 heads thing. So that's bad. And everything else is still not fulfilled, like the locusts and the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse and the number being printed on people so they can't buy or trade. Like all of these things have to be hyper spiritualized away, basically ignored. Like it's not just that they're being spiritualized. For example, it is spiritualization of the beast coming out of the sea to say that the sea represents like people, not the Gentiles, non-Jews. That is spiritualization because it literally says the beast comes out of the sea, and that could be the ocean. But I'm totally fine with that. Like that's a very reasonable spiritualization. It is crazy, I think, irresponsible spiritualization to say that the reference to the number of the beast's name being placed on people's hands or foreheads so they could not buy or trade, and saying that represents economic systems throughout these thousands of years that we've had since Christ that are expensive for believers. Like that's not being true to the text. The text says that they're barred from selling, and you have to have the name on the hand or the forehead. I'm not explaining to you what that means. I don't know what that means, right? But it definitely doesn't mean some sad, like, oh, sometimes Christians can't, they have to bake cakes for gay people or something. I don't even know. I've read Vodi Balcom's pitch on this. I've listened to his sermon series on this, I should say. And he said basically that governments are inherently anti-God, and governments make people belong to their societies to trade and buy things, and that when Christians are part of those, they always encounter difficulty. Gosh, well, that's a very unfaithful reading of the text. Like that's a reading that doesn't really believe the Word of God means what it's trying to communicate, because there are many ways to communicate that artfully, even, and that's not what the text says. And so I think it's a unfaithful reading of the text to say that has somehow been fulfilled, because there's no other time in history where that kind of thing has been done.
Let me tell you something that's also an unfaithful reading of this text. I can't find a Catholic saint, this woman who had visions of Mary. But remember, I said in another episode, I just can't find the name of this woman.
Is it Catherine of Siena?
Oh, that'd be funny, but okay. No. Also, 1600s actually got a revelation directly from Mary explaining what the book of Revelation meant.
Ooh.
Classic. For blanking on the name. If you know it, please comment. If you remember or can find it, comment down below. I'm not going to be able to sleep because of this. Anyway, this Catholic channel, the one that just closed. Oh my gosh, I'm not going to remember. I'm so tired.
Church Militant?
Church, yes.
Ooh.
Oh, I can. Okay, yes.
Tag team.
Yeah. They're closed. They're done because of some scandal. And they were doing a series of this woman's revelation over time. And part of this was that as the Council of Jerusalem is taking place, Mary is sailing with John, I'm pretty sure with John, to the coasts of Israel from wherever she was living. I think in Ephesus. I'm blanking, in Ephesus. And then as she's landing, she's accompanied by an army of angels. And then on the either left side or right side of the boat, she sees this dragon coming out of the ocean. And it is by her command that the beast is kept at bay. And then she's able to land and then obviously go to the Council of Jerusalem to bring clarity on how it should be solved. Okay, that's one way, I guess, to read the dragon with the heads and the horns.
It's just a dragon.
Yes, a literal dragon, and then Mary's coming in and then telling it to like back away. As you can see, if this truly happened, as I would say the Catholic Church has historically been amillennialist, since Augustine imposed that view on the majority of the church, for the same reasons that you were listing, that, if the predictions of Jesus about the coming destruction are not the same as Revelation, then that means Jesus is a false prophet, even though you don't have to make the assumption that they're talking about the same thing.
Right.
So because of that, the Catholic Church has historically been a millennialist, and you eventually, by the 1600s, you get an unhinged reading of the text that says Mary, yes, is the one that's keeping this demon at bay, and it goes on into other crazy directions. But that's a reading of Revelation.
Yeah, and it's unique and wrong. So I throw these darts to say that I think often amillennialists and post-millennialists take a very high position. Say, I have the high ground, all you plebes have the low ground. If you were only well-read, or you only knew, or you were only more mature or older, you would know that you should abandon your foolish ways and join the revolution that is not caring, or whatever, or caring. Like, amillennialists, I think, generally say, like, don't care, right? Like, Jesus is coming back at some point. We obviously believe that the book of Revelation has been fulfilled already, mostly, and that we're just waiting for Jesus to come back. And so, kind of in the same boat as pre-millennialists, except without all the, like, headline reading, because it's already happened. Like, we don't need to think about it. It's a very ease your conscience way of doing things, but it's not right. And I think for back of, not that everybody that's amillennialist is prideful and full of haughtiness, but I feel like the position itself is haughty in presumption that we can understand Revelation, when I don't think we can. And so I think those people often avoid conflict because they think it doesn't matter. And I would say that they have actually a surprisingly, ironically, haughty position to say they do understand Revelation actually perfectly, right? Because it's hindsight revelation. And when they can't even explain it, it seems sad that they would think that they understand all of Revelation enough to know that it's fully fulfilled, except for the return of Christ. But they can't even, not a single one can explain the whole book, even the scholars of the field. But I will say as much as I throw the shots here at amillennialists and post-millennialists who think that they know what revelation means, the most unhinged parties are definitely premillennialists. Like, bar none, the weirdest interpretations of the book of Revelation and the freakiest and the most culturally swayed and the craziest frothing at the mouth, most passionate theorists are not amillennialists or postmillennialists. It's definitely premillennialists. So I'm not ignoring the fact that premillennialists encompasses a ton of different people, and they're definitely not the chillest bunch. They're the people encompasses cults like Mormons. I believe they're in the later days, and that they know the book of Revelation means some persecution is coming on the true church, the Mormon church, and that the beast or a false prophet is the Protestant movement or Catholic movement, and yada yada yada. Mormons, not Christians, also bad view of Revelation. Same with Seventh-day Adventists and Jehovah's Witnesses, who have some crazy versions of the end times and believe they understand Revelation, and Jehovah's Witnesses specifically think that they can read it to know that 144,000 true Jehovah's Witnesses are guaranteed heaven, and the rest are, screwed, basically. Or that 1917 was like the date of some event in Revelation. I kind of forget what they currently say because they change it all the time. That's unhinged and weird. Harold Camping and others who are quote-unquote Christians who predict that the coming of Jesus Christ is happening in 2012 or 2013 or 2014 or whenever he gives up guessing it. Obviously, that guy was wrong. Bad reading of Revelation. All the New Kingdom media are people that are saying that it's Donald Trump. Okay, they won't even say his name in the episode. Kind of weird, but whatever. It's not Donald Trump for a multitude of reasons. I'm not going to bow down or worship Donald Trump. 1, 2, there's no way that guy unites anything. And 3, he doesn't fulfill a lot of these things. There's no connection to the 10 horns or 7 heads. There's none of that. He's just not the beast. Sorry, nor is Jared Kushner the Antichrist, as they also say in that video. Like, what crazy? Otherwise reasonable people, crazy and unhinged when they try to apply things that they understand to Revelation, because Revelation just it defies explanation. It defies historic explanation. It has not been historically fulfilled.
Now, an interesting take that I get, positive development for my own growth. The spiritual successor of the Roman Empire, I've always assumed, maybe incorrectly or maybe rightly, you tell me below in the comments, that the Antichrist will come from a resurrected Roman Empire. And they post the argument that, well, the United States is a spiritual successor of the Roman Empire, and in my humble opinion, there hasn't been a superpower with the capacity to invade any place on the planet like the United States. I mean, maybe if there's not 1,000 years of history, maybe there's another world power. But up until this point, not even Britain could do that. Clearly, they couldn't resist against in the 13 colonies. So
we can't even stay in Afghanistan. So
they willingly left.
Klingon Empire. Whatever happens in 400 years from now, and there's somebody who's a real world power, we're gonna laugh that we thought America was the successor.
Fair, but also a lot of in the U.S. There's a perception that they're tied to Western culture, going back to Socrates, heirs of Rome, heirs of Greece. The U.S. has, I can understand why, but Latin in many of its mottos, like E pluribus unum, and the capital has Greek columns.
True.
And government buildings reflect Greek and Roman architecture. So I'm like, oh, okay. I've never considered that it could be an actual spiritual successor like the Roman Empire. Not like literally some country in Europe is going to reunite Spain, France, England, Turkey, Tunisia, all of these places. Could be. But an interesting take. A spiritual successor, not a literal descendant of the Roman Empire.
Yeah, and in that way, just to play an example here, because it's one of many, 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 many theories you will hear, and I think a lot of theories will seem plausible when you hear their strongest take. For example, amillennialists, when they explain why Revelation has already happened, will give the strongest take. The strongest take is that Jesus' prophecies were fulfilled. So we already put that one away. It's not related to Revelation, so we can discuss it separately. And then 2, their second strongest take is Nero is the beast, and there were 7 emperors. He's the 7th emperor, and therefore he's the 7th head of this beast that comes out, and that he was fatally wounded but healed because when he died, it caused a succession crisis that hadn't happened yet in Roman imperial leadership, and so that was a scary moment. And then it recovers, and so now it's recovered, and everybody praises the beast, and that 666 means Nero. That's strong. And if that was it, like maybe my historic complaints about the 10 horns and 7 heads not really lining up with Nero, maybe you could ignore it. But everything else about Revelation doesn't fit this Roman Empire theory. And so that's where it falls apart. New Kingdom Media pitch here, America is the beast system that the Antichrist is coming from, and that Trump is the crown, or he's the beast himself. Trump is mortally wounded in the head, but he's not. You know, the ear assassination thing, interesting, right? And obviously it was a campaign building moment. So head wound. I see the connection. America, very Roman-esque. So when it says that the whore is riding on the city of 7 hills, that is the beast. 7 Hills clearly a reference to Rome. I don't think there's any other city in the world that's truly called the city of 7 Hills. These New Kingdom guys say that DC was built on 7 Hills. Oh my gosh. Okay. I don't really believe that, but Wikipedia says so, but like nobody calls it that. Same with Jerusalem is supposedly built on 7 Hills. Who calls it that? Nowhere in the Bible does it say that. But Rome is like epithetted the city of 7 Hills. So that one. Got it. So America being the new Rome, okay, like I can buy it. We like Romans. Clearly we modeled our country after the Romans. So the whore, Babylon, clearly the whore is Israel. I think that one I kind of buy because dressed in the robe, the royal colors, and God calls Israel whore all the time. So this makes sense.
And pretending to be the system of all when they are rejecting their Messiah right now.
So all of that, okay, the whore riding the beast being Rome, aka America, and the whore being Israel. Okay, this lines up, but the 10 horns and the 7 heads of the beast, no relation to America, right. None at all. And so it has like some of the connections. You're like, oh, like I can start to see the thing, but the people in the video won't tell you about the 10 horns and the 7 heads because it doesn't line up. And I think they would have said, I don't know, I'm just guessing, I'm making excuses for them, but I think they would say that Revelation is double fulfillment. And so it happened in 70 AD and then it's happening in the future. And so anything that doesn't fit their model right now fit the previous time that things happen. So they would say that the 10 horns and 7 heads and 10 crowns really fits Nero. I don't agree with that either, but that is a belief. And therefore they can ignore that detail when they say that it also applies to Trump, because the 10 horns and 7 heads was talking about Rome, and now we're talking about future fulfillment. I would hope that future fulfillment would fulfill all the things about the prophecy too, right? I digress. So I think all I'm trying to say here in this many rambling view of premillennialism and end times theories is that I would encourage Christians of faithful and good nature minds to not presume to understand Revelation, because thousands of years of Christian history have proven that Christians have no idea what Revelation means and are terribly off every time we try to make a prediction. And I believe that thoroughly includes amillennialists and post-millennialists. They are not immune from making bad predictions because none of their explanations of Revelation are consistent with each other, not historically consistent, not even consistent in the modern day. And that's a bad sign. And I think that it divides Christians unnecessarily to make bold claims about the book of Revelation and understanding it. I think it also gives us a bad reputation amongst the world and amongst fellow Christians. When I read Augustine, and he's got great things to say, and then he tells me that Christ is coming back in the year 1000. I'm like, well, you're dumb, right? Like, you want to chuck all of Augustine because he has something so obviously wrong. And he has lots of great things to say. Just leave Revelation a mystery, right? I am perfectly happy for us to hear somebody's theory. And if you have, in the privacy of your own home, or cooking up a theory, okay, I guess check it out. But it would be surprising, considering there are 2,000 years of history to go through, that we would now be in the time that things are being revealed. I understand today is so unique and different, but so was 1970. Like, 1970 was pretty unique and different from the previous times, and 1800s are pretty unique and different from the previous times, and the 1700s are pretty unique and different from the previous years. And so every generation has a reason to think that they're unique and that Revelation is coming then. And I think we should learn from our ancestors and not be so presumptuous at making theories that we know what Revelation means. I think it gives us, again, bad rep, divides the church. It's not worth it. And we don't have to abandon Jesus's correct predictions about 70 AD to believe that we don't understand Revelation. Like, we can say we don't understand Revelation and still say that we do understand Jesus' predictions about the destruction coming to the temple.
To be fair, now is when, in this day and age, when a Catholic university in Switzerland has made an AI face of Jesus that you can pray to and it responds to you. So
that is crazy. I don't know. Sebastian told me this. I haven't confirmed anything, but it sounds pretty Catholic to me that they would make using AI, make a Jesus face that like speaks to you and responds to you. Oh my gosh, who made that? Gosh, blasphemy in major mode, but also like so obvious that you think even the Catholics wouldn't do it.
Yes, I mean, I can see how the image of the beast will like speak to people. And
I mean, if somebody explained to me a theory where that was fulfilling the prophecy about the image of the beast being able to speak, I'd be like, okay. But I would never say that is how the image of the beast will speak, because maybe it will be something totally different. Maybe it's some spiritual reason. I don't really understand what it means. So I make no predictions there.
If I could be so bold and maybe cheeky, I think the Pope should infallibly define the meaning of Revelation. Like, of all the things that they should get on, like either the Church of the East, the Orthodox, the Copts, they should infallibly define what Revelation means.
Yeah, what good is a perfect authority on everything that is true in Christianity, like the Pope, if he's not giving you the dirty deets on exactly how the end times will come? Useless. Same with Mormon prophets or any others that presume to have authority from God, but cannot tell you anything that a normal person wouldn't know.
I want to mention, unless if there was something else you want to say about the belief itself and all the theories, how there's a practical attack that amillennialists and post-millennialists lob at.
Oh yes, this should be our ender. Yeah.
Okay, you ready to go there?
Yeah.
Okay. I hear this often, and to me, when I'm not okay. As far as you may have seen, I have some interesting theories, perhaps, but I'm not that into these conspiracies or ideas or concepts. It's just interesting to me. I hear amillennialists, post-millennialists say that pre-millennialists are either, Augustine would say, carnal, and modern day people would say indifferent to your current life and flippant, living in the moment, instead of concentrating on establishing a legacy, planning for the future. In essence, they're like, pre-millennials are like, let's eat and drink now, for tomorrow we die, because God could come any moment.
He is coming. I know he's coming on the 7th of January, 2022.
Yes. However, to me, it's like, what are you talking about? Just because there's some unhinged people running around like headless chickens saying Jesus is coming back on like 2040, or Martin Luther saying, oh, the Pope is the Antichrist and the Turks another Antichrist coming for Vienna. Like, clearly this is it. Like, it's happening right now as we live. And oh, just kidding, they got defeated. Okay, just kidding, guys. It's not them. We still have some time left. Okay, yeah. So you have some people saying strange theories, but it's really a non sequitur. You can live expecting that Christ could come at any moment, and also focusing on having a successful career. In a God honor of implying Christians God honoring way, serving your church, making sure that your church is established for 100, 300, another 1,000 years. You want to make sure it lasts. It's well supported. The people are educated, raised up in training in scripture and understanding the word of God. To me, it's a non sequitur. Like, you can have that. You do that. You live that way, honoring God in your work, making sure you want to leave a legacy for your family, your church. I want to do that. So what's up with that attack?
Yeah, I think they will look to their past. So amillennialists and post-millennialists who use that attack against pre-millennialists, especially American pre-millennialists, I think they often think back to the days when they were in some fervor, or they know of people who were in a fervor of like, the end times is in 2 years, and therefore build a bunker, or
sell your house,
or just like don't care, or this country is going to hell in a handbasket, and so why would you even vote? Or let's leave, or let's just like commiserate about the destruction of the United States. And of course, I think we should all admit that that is a very unhelpful attitude to have when you are wanting to build a bunker. Certainly, if we can take anything from Christian teaching, it's that we should not hide when there's work to do. And Jesus says explicitly at the end of the Olivet Discourse, which has the when you see the desolation that causes abomination that causes desolation, like flee Judea, which is what people would usually quote to say like build a bunker. That same section, Jesus says you should be dutifully working. If you're a faithful servant, you should be dutifully working and serving the house until the master comes. And you don't know when the master comes. So you already heard what we said. I don't think they're talking about the same event here. Like the destruction of Jerusalem is separate from the return of the master in full. But when the master comes, you should be dutifully serving the Lord here. And you don't know when he's going to come. So no bunkers for you. Don't build a bunker just to hide away and not be a light to the world. We are to be a light to the world, a city on a hill that everybody can point to as a means of declaring God's glory and coming to Christ. And so, yes, premillennialism is certainly no excuse for apathy or pessimism about the future. And me and Sebastian, as historic premillennialists, can point and say the exact same thing to Christians who are suffering from pessimism over the future, and say, like, take heart. The Lord has been faithful for these last 2,000 years. Society has greatly increased because of the spread of his kingdom. It says nothing about the timing of the millennium. To have faith in God that he will be good to his people and that we should be serving him dutifully here. So whether that means at some point an antichrist figure will come, or if it just means that Jesus is coming back someday minus all of that traditional revelation stuff, still serve him faithfully. Like, don't go hide under a bunker. And so it does not promote post-millennialism or amillennialism to hate on those who would like to build a bunker and who are pessimistic about the future. Likewise, I mean, there's plenty of amillennialists, frankly, who are pessimistic about the future and are doing the same thing. So you can be any kind of Christian and hide your light under a basket. And so it is I agree, a non sequitur to say that it's because of premillennialism that people are hiding their light under baskets. People hide their light under baskets for a multitude of reasons that don't have to do with eschatology. And so I would say you don't have to share a post-millennial eschatology to agree with post-millennialists that we should be confident and faithful with that which God has given us. Post-millennialists believe that we will be predestined by God to bring about his kingdom on earth, like in a very, very triumphant way, in which Christianity basically takes over the whole earth for 1,000 years and then Christ returns. And I would say you don't have to believe that to believe that God has clearly blessed Christians to benefit their nations these last 2,000 years. And so we should continue to push to benefit our nations for these next potentially 2,000 more years, or however long it takes for the Lord to return. So yes, I will say that is the main argument that made me consider post-millennialism. Was I totally agree with being positive and faithful with our work and confident about the future, and the fact that God has greatly blessed the nations through the work of his son, Jesus Christ, here in these last 2,000 years. But it does not follow that post-millennialism is true or that amillennialism is true. Yeah.
There we go.
So with that, I warned you it was going to be a grab bag of Revelation topics. So hopefully it wasn't too boring. Hopefully there's some insight or some controversy that you can comment to us about. All this is to serve the Lord Jesus Christ. It's why we found our cause in serving the Lord Jesus Christ. I've been Michael, the man behind the machine, and to my right, your left has been
Sebastian, the archivist.
Thank you for listening. If you want to see the rest of our episodes in which we talk more about Revelation theories in general and give more overview, we've got them. They're somewhere in our long catalog of episodes. We're also on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, Facebook, wherever you might find your podcast in video form and in audio form. You can download our audio listening podcasts if you want to download them all to listen on a bike ride or something. They're on podbean.com/foundcause. We would love your comments. You know we read them and respond to them. So if you want to get a rise out of us, or you have some insightful thing to say, or something encouraging, or something not encouraging, post in the comments and it'll make my day. Even though a guy who says he was falling asleep during our episodes, it makes my day. Somebody watched it and fell asleep. Till next time, we talk about something completely different. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.